Okay, welcome guys. Another video here. Today we're going to be looking at draft color rankings and common rankings for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. So, as always, if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and let's jump right into it. So, starting off with white, we've got Intercessor's Arrest. So, tier 1 card. These are kind of some cards that you want to be taking with kind of your first, second, third picks. It just shuts down any creature, probably the best card in white. Um, Next, we've got Ancestral Katana. There's no other equipment in the set, really, that pumps up your creatures, at least at the common level. So this, to me, is just another bomb card in white. You can attach it to Samurai or Warrior attacking alone for 1. Otherwise, you equip it for 3. But this just turns any of your creatures into a threat. You know, all of your 2/2s now become 4/3s. And that can be really hard to deal with for the opponent. Next, we've got Wanderer's Intervention. This is another pretty good removal spell. You have to wait till something is attacking or blocking, but 4 damage pretty much takes out anything in the set. So again, another really good removal spell in white. And lastly, in the tier 1 section, I had Sunblade Samurai, so a 4/4 Vigilance for 5, and you can channel him to go and get a basic Plains card and put it into your hand, you gain 2 life. So pretty good, pretty solid creature, 5 mana for a 4/4 Vigilance. He kind of falls into the Samurai kind of archetype as well, so he could get boosted by their creatures. And channeling at instant speed is always nice and kind of mana fixing if you need to. So on to the tier 2 cards. These are cards that still are very playable, but these are probably going to be cards that you're going to be picking around, third, fourth, fifth, sixth type thing. So first off, we got Befriending the Moss. This is a good card. Gives your creatures +1/+1 and flying, so you can get some evasion in on one of your creatures for a couple of turns, and then it turns into a 2/4 flyer, which is not bad. Next, we've got Imperial Subduer. Not bad. 3/2 for 3 is okay on its own. Not the best, but whenever a warrior or samurai attacks alone, you can tap a creature down. So if you're playing an aggressive kind of style of deck, this thing can be quite good. Next, we've got Iganjo Exemplar. 2/1 for 2. If he attacks alone, he comes at 3/2. But also boosts your samurai and warriors if you've only got one attacker, so a pretty solid 2-drop. Lastly, we've got Seven Tail Mentor. He comes in and just puts a +1/+1 on anything, and then when he dies as well, he puts a +1/+1 on a creature or vehicle. So not bad for a 4-drop as well. Okay, on to black. So black is really strong. Obviously, Twisted Embrace, probably the best removal in this set at common level. Comes in, it destroys any creature, planeswalker, and then also pumps up your creature as well. So really good at 4 mana. The only thing you have to watch out for is whatever creature you're enchanting doesn't get killed before it resolves. Next, we've got the Shadow Walker. This is just a bomb creature. You can ninjutsu him in for 4, and he's a 5/5. So just a really strong creature. 5/5 is really hard to deal with for a lot of colors. And worst comes to worst, you can hardcast it for 6. But again, this is a really good card. Probably one of the best creatures, in my opinion, in the set at the common level. Next, we've got Lethal Exploit, another good removal spell. So -2/-2 pretty much kills a lot of creatures early game, and you'll always probably have one modified creature. So even if you're not really going for modified kind of strategy, you know, there's a lot of +1/+1 counters you have. If you have a Twisted Embrace out, then you've got a modified creature. If you've got if you're playing black-white, you've got the Katana. Or if you have creatures that have remodification, then or reconfigure, sorry. There's a lot of different ways to get that extra -1/-1 bonus. So usually this probably ends up being a -3/-3, which is a lot stronger, and it could end up being more as well. And lastly, in the tier 1, we've got the Akiba Reckoner Raid. Just a pretty solid card. It helps you boost your enchantment requirements if you need that. And then just turns into a 2/2 menace creature when it flips. So it's always nice having creatures with some evasion. On to tier 2. I feel like the tier 2 in black is probably one of the strongest colors. Like all these cards are also fairly good. So we've got Cameo Terrible Secrets comes in. At worst, it's a 3/4 for 4, but oftentimes you will get that draw card and gain a life, which is just so solid. Next, we got Inkrise Infiltrator, a good card if you're playing Ninjutsu. He's got flying, so you can always usually get in for a damage, and then you can pump him up later in the game, which can also turn him into a 3/4, which is can kind of be a threat mid to late game. Next, we've got the Mukotai Ambusher. He's a 3/2 lifelink. You can ninjutsu him in for 2. So pretty solid card as well. You'd really want to have 1-drops really if you're playing this card. So you can kind of ninjutsu him in on the second turn. But again, a pretty solid creature for black. And then we've got Debt to the Kami. This is a decent card as well. You know, it gives black not a specific enchantment removal, but it does force an opponent to exile enchantment, so that can be handy. And then as well, it can force them to exile a creature. So even though it's not a targeted removal spell, it's also not bad. Not as good as the other 2 removal spells in black, but I would say it definitely is still playable. Moving on to red. Okay, we've got Kami's Flare. This is the top card for red here. Deals 3 damage to a creature planeswalker. Then it can also deal 2 damage to the creature's controller if you control a modified creature. So just a solid removal spell, and they can also do a few points of damage to the opponent. Next, we've got Peerless Samurai. 2/3 menace for 3. And whenever Samurai attacks alone, you can the next spell you cast this turn costs 1 less, so just another boost. This is a good card for Samurai and Warrior kind of creature type strategy. And as well, just a 2/3 menace for 3 is pretty good, especially in red. So really solid card for red as well. Next, we got Voltage Surge. This is a really good card. Kind of just like a shock that deals 2 damage, except can't target opponents, but creature or planeswalker, and you could sacrifice an artifact to deal 4 damage instead, which does come up sometimes as well. So not a bad removal spell there as well. And then we've got Scrapyard Steelbreaker as a tier 1. Now this is kind of on the fence, tier 1, tier 2, but a 3/4 for 4 mana is not bad, and his ability is kind of acts as evasion. You know, if you've got another artifact out on the battlefield, it always makes your opponent consider that he could be a 5/5. So it does kind of get in. You know, if your opponent's got like a 4/4 creature out or something like that, sitting back to block, and you swing in with him, then it is kind of evasion because your opponent knows you could just sacrifice an artifact and pump him to kill his creatures, so it's not a bad card. Next, we got our tier 2 cards. So we've got the Song Shaper. Not bad. He's a 2/2 for 2. But if you've got a lot of artifacts that you play, can consistently become 3/2, which is not bad. Next, we got the Ironhoof Boar. 5/4 trample haste for 6. A little bit on the pricey side, but not bad for red. And it can pump one of your creatures up if you need to, so that's kind of a nice added bonus if you need to. Next, we've got the Aki Emberkeeper. So he's a 2/1 for 2. Whenever a modified creature, non-token modified creature you control dies, create a 1/1. So not bad. If you are playing kind of a modified strategy, you get quite a few 1/1s out of this guy, so he can be decent as well. And last, we've got the Shattered States Era. So it's 5 mana. It's a little bit expensive, but it does gain control of a creature, so It could win you games, kind of removing one of their blockers and swinging in with it. It then it pumps up your creatures, and then it becomes a 3/3 at the end. So it's not a bad card as well. Okay, on to green. We've got tier 1 here. We've got Greater Tanuki. This card is just really strong. 6/5 trample, and you can channel it to put a basic land into play tapped. So 6/5 for 6 is um, kind of like a craw worm type creature, but a little bit stronger. And it's got a channel ability. So 6/5 just really hard to deal with in this format, especially for draft. So really strong creature. Next, we've got Master's Rebuke. Really good removal spell, especially for green. You know, you don't really have a ton of removal, but this is a pretty solid card. Next, we've got Jukai Preserver. This is a 3/3 for 4. When it comes into play, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, and you can also just discard it to put a 1/1 counter on up to 2 creatures you control. So pretty solid. You know, it comes in, especially if you're playing modified strategy. It puts a counter on something, or you can just pump something else up. So pretty versatile, and it can always pump itself up. So 4/4 for 4 is pretty strong. Next, we've got Tales of Master Shishiro. So this is a strong card. You know, it pumps up your creatures for 2 turns by putting counters on them, 1/1 counters, and then it comes in. It's a 5/5. I believe it has haste as well. So pretty strong card at the 5 mana slot. Just a really hard creature to deal with. A 5/5. Tough for a lot of colors to deal with. Okay, on to our tier 2. We've got the Coiling Stalker. So ninjutsu isn't great for green, and there's not a lot of really ninjutsu creatures in green, but it's not a bad card. I mean, if you do ninjutsu him in, you'll likely damage the opponent unless he's got some sort of removal, and then you get to put a 1/1 counter on your creature you control that doesn't have one. So pretty solid. Even if you don't ninjutsu him, he could be a turn 2 play, which might be able to get in for an attack later on. So not a bad card there. Next, we've got Fade into Antiquity. This card is actually really good. There's so many artifact and enchantment creatures in this set that it's almost like a creature removal a lot of the times. And then it also gets rid of other artifacts and enchantments, obviously. So really versatile. You know, there's no issue main boarding like 1 or even 2 copies of this sometimes. But definitely for sideboard is really useful. So not a bad card there. Next we got Heir of the Ancient Fang. Not a bad creature. Oftentimes he will be a 3/4 creature if you're playing modified. So a 3/4 for 3 is pretty strong. And then next we got the Geothermal Kami, a 4/3 for 4. Comes into play, you can return enchantment you control to its owner's hand. So if you've got sagas or things like that out, it can create some synergy there if you want to kind of replay the sagas. But even a 4/3 for 4 is pretty solid as well. Next, we're on to blue. Moon Circuit Hacker. I kind of had this as probably the top card just coming in. It's kind of like a Ninja of the Deep Hours, kind of a throwback to the old Kamigawa set. I believe it was Betrayers of Kamigawa that card was in. So it comes in, you ninjutsu him in the turn. If he's deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So if it's the first time he came into play and does damage to an opponent, you draw a card. Otherwise, next time you draw a card and then discard as well. So really solid card here. Probably just for ninjutsu for 1 is just it's really good. Next, we've got the Modern Age. So draw a card, discard cards. That really lets you kind of filter through your deck. If you need lands, it'll draw you more cards, and hopefully you can get your lands in. And then it becomes a 2/3 flyer, I believe, once it turns into a saga, which is pretty strong. So This is also a really good card. It's almost better than the Moon Circuit Hacker, I'd say, but really tight comparison. If you had these both in your first pack and you're playing blue and nothing else to really pick, it would definitely be a tough decision between the two. But either one is really good. Next, we've got Moon Snare Specialist. Um, just another ninjutsu creature that can bounce a creature uh, to their owner's hand. So this also bounces your creatures if you need to. It probably wouldn't happen too often, but um, if you got enter the battlefield effects or things like that, you might want to bounce your own creature back. So just a really solid card as well. Next, we've got Sky Swimmer Koi, 3/3 flyer for 4 is always pretty solid, and its ability kind of lets you draw and filter through your deck if you're playing artifacts. So pretty good card there. Next, we got Tier 2, so Network Disruptor. This card really probably not tapping down permanents too often. You really want this kind of as your first turn drop that you can ninjutsu something in second turn. So not bad. It usually just ends up being a 1/1 flyer, but does have, it is an artifact, so it could you know, have some synergies with other cards, but usually it's just going to be a 1/1 flyer. Next, we've got Moonfolk Puzzle Maker. Comes in, you scry for 1. It's a 1/4 flyer, so not amazing, but it could help you get your ninjutsu triggers, and a 1/4 kind of stalls off a lot of early game creatures that are like kind of 2/1s, 2/2s, that type of thing. So it can be okay. Next, we've got the Mirror Shell Crab. It's a 5/7 for 7, so it's kind of slow. You really only probably play one of these in your deck. It's more than likely you're going to channel it to counter a spell, is probably what it's going to be. So it's not great in draft, I wouldn't say, but you know, you might play 1, maybe 2 if your deck doesn't have much else, but it's not a card I'd really pick too high. And lastly, we've got the Arm Guard Familiar. It's not bad. I mean, 2/1 for 2 in blue with Ward 2, but usually it's probably going to be something that you'll want to reconfigure onto like your flying creatures mid-game, so you can get in for an extra 2 point of damage. So not a bad card there. Okay, color ranking. So I'm going to say that white is probably the top pick for me. The reason is it pairs with every other color really easily. A lot of the archetypes in this set have white in it, so you know you can play white, black, kind of artifact and enchantments, and you can play white, green, which will kind of focus around enchantments as well. You can play white, blue vehicles. You can play white, red samurai. So white is just really good. It pairs with all the other colors, and as well, it's got the only real enchantment or equipment, sorry, with the katana, which I think is really good. Second, I had black. It's just got really good removal and good creatures, and it also pairs with the other colors really well. So um, again, just really good. If you're drafting, I'd kind of force white or black in your first kind of pack, unless you open up a Bob rare or something like that in another color. Green, really strong creatures, and it pairs pretty well with the other colors, but doesn't really have much removal, and its mana ramping is not that good either. But again, it has really strong creatures, so putting it as kind of the third color here. Fourth, I have blue. A lot of good cards. I almost put blue ahead of green. It's got evasion and ninjutsu, but the creatures overall for blue are not that strong. And really, in draft, creatures are what's gonna kind of win you games. So I put blue as fourth. And lastly, I put red. I mean, red has some good cards. It's got some good removals, but the creatures are just pretty weak in red. Unless you open up good uncommons, things like that, red is going to be pretty weak in my opinion. So I I've kind of put it last. And so these color rankings were mainly focused on just the commons, but I'll probably do another video with the color rankings overall, including uncommons and probably rares as well. And these rankings might change, but just looking at the commons in this set for drafting purposes, these are the rankings that I put them at. So, let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with um, these rankings? Comment down below. And as always, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.